Brother Sultan from New Jersey asks that is meditation as practiced by modern practitioners allowed in the Sharia, or is there some overlap with rituals of other faiths? He then says that there are many recent studies that acknowledge that there's a lot of positive results. It helps in mindfulness and stress and being focused and well-being. So the Islamic ruling on meditation as it is practiced in our times.
وما أرسلنا من قبلك إلا رجالا نوحي إليهم فاسألوا أهل الذكر إن كنتم لا تعلمون.
The answer to this in a nutshell is that there is no doubt that rituals of another faith are not allowed for us to do. Anything that is inherently a ritual. And therefore, for example, to bow down in front of an idol, for example, to show servitude to another god, or to do anything that is uniquely characteristic of another faith, another aqidah, another religion that is a symbol of their religion. So, for example, it would not be allowed for a Muslim to, for example, wear a cross, because that is something that indicates faith that is against our faith. So clearly, anything to do with rituals or the theology or the specific practices of another religion would not be permissible for us. It would either be haram at the very least, or it might even, a'udhu billah, be a type of kufr and shirk, depending on many other factors. At the same time, that is one understanding. At the same time, cultures, habits, cuisines of any civilization, the default is that these are permissible and halal. And therefore, how one dresses, the colors of one's dress, the style of one's dress, the eating that our cuisines that might happen, the language that we speak, our hand gestures, for example, all of these are cultural, and the Sharia did not come to dictate any one culture over any other culture. So this is something we should all know by now. The issue comes, there are some aspects that are somewhat in the middle. There are some things that people do that are perhaps a little bit in rituals and perhaps a little bit in culture. And therefore we need to, in those gray areas, be a little bit more careful and examine what exactly is being asked about. In this particular instance, the type of meditation or the origins of this practice might, for example, be with certain strands of Buddhism. There's no question that certain, religions have a type of meditation that is ritualistic in nature. Now, the question that I'm asking you is that the type of meditation that you are practicing, is it something that is completely separate and distinct from what has originated from another faith, and that is meant to achieve a type of enlightenment, i.e. it is a spiritual journey for the people who practice it? Is it somehow related to that, or is it disconnected from that? So if a person sits down before going to work for a few minutes and just clears his or her mind up and just focuses on the day, plans out what am I going to be doing, for example, I don't see any problem with that. At the same time, if you're going to adopt a certain posture and start uttering certain rituals in ancient Sanskrit or whatever, then clearly you have crossed over to something that is ritualistic in nature. And therefore, I would put the question back to you and ask yourself that when you are doing what you are doing, is there an element of another ritual, another faith tradition involved, or is it simply a means of just cleansing your mind and focusing for the day and making sure that you are better, but let's say prepared for the day? And if that is the case, then at some level we all meditate, like we just take a moment and we just begin our task and whatnot. At some level, every one of us does that. Having said that, I would also say that the Sharia has its own mechanisms that are definitely far better. And this reminds me, your question actually reminded me of Ibn Taymiyyah's routine. Ibn al-Qayyim, the famous student of his, visited him in the early morning and he said that Ibn Taymiyyah was sitting after Fajr for many hours doing his dhikr and his Qur'an, and then when he finished, he turned around and he said, this is my spiritual food. If I don't get my food for the day, I cannot be productive for the rest of the day. And so we have our own mechanisms, and may I suggest to you that early morning is a time that you should do your Qur'an and you should do some dhikr. You should just sit alone, cut off from any noise, any iPhone, anything. Just literally sit after Salatul Fajr, do some Quran, do some dhikr, and that meditation, quote unquote, will be infinitely better and actually prepare you for the day spiritually and mentally. And that will be something that will be in conformity with the Sunnah, because that is exactly what our Prophet ﷺ did, that he would sit after Salatul Fajr and he would do his adhkar. And this was the practice of many of the righteous. So I advise you to do that, even though, as I said, if you simply cleanse your mind and focus and concentrate, in and of itself, you may call it what you will. All of us do it at a certain level, and it would be permitted to do that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
يا من أجبت دعاء نوح فانتصر وحملته في فلكك المشحون يا من أحال النار حول خليله روحا وريحانا بقولك كن